Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So we are from group 2 and our question is about array-based list and the operation of array-based list. So our group consists of 4 members, Sister Nur Alia binti Muhammad, Sister Nurul Syairah binti Ahmad Fikri, Sister Adibah binti Wakasa and Brother Muhammad Akmal Najwan bin Abdullah. And our group project is supervised by Dr. Mazda binti Ahmad. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Ala binti Muhammad and my metric number is 2010884. So today I'll be the first presenter to talk about array-based list, and without further ado, let's start with our introduction for today. So for array-based list is a data structure that comprises component on the same type, which is known as an array. An array deals with a collection of data or objects, which is a method of organizing the data in a sequential manner. And an array is a large chunk of memory that is divided into small blocks, which means an array consists of small blocks that consist data or object in it and can store a single value. An array stores elements in contiguous memory areas, resulting in easily calculable addresses for the elements stored, allowing for faster access to elements at precise indexes. Which means if you store some value in that array in the particular block, you can easily access the data by calling or declaring the array itself. And this array is a fixed array, which is it is different with a dynamic array which is in linked list, which I will tell or I will explain more about that in next slide. So for array, there are many languages usually provide or support the array itself. For example, in this slide, I show how you can declare an array in JavaScript, which means you have to put int n10, which is your total element, and you have to put bracket in it because bracket is what you show to declare that you are using array in your programming code. So let's continue by talking about the characteristic of an array. So an array is often need to deal with collection of objects and data like what I said before. And once you created an array, the capacity is fixed because it cannot dynamically change its size without you reallocate the memory address, without you rebuilding your array, without you copying your array. Because this array is a fixed array and it is very different with linked list because linked list is a dynamic array, which is it can easily expand itself because it is resizable, and because of that you have to have the prior knowledge on how many numbers of objects, how many elements that you want to put in your array, because this array is a fixed array, so that you cannot change its size during your programming code, because you need to like reallocate all of it again because this is a fixed array. You cannot easily resize it. And then what you have to know, in an array, the elements are stored in a contiguous array position, which means as a result it will be easily calculable address, and it will be easy for you to access the object or the data in your array. And then what you have to know is the size of an array is your max length. So basically, if you declare your size of an array as 10, your max length is also 10 because it follows the size of an array. Next thing is the first element of list is the first element in array. So basically, in your list, the first list is orange. So the first element in your array is also orange because it follows the first elements that have in your list. And then other than that, it also requires an estimate of the maximum size of the list, because as what I said before, it is a fixed array, so it cannot be resizable, and it will give so much trouble to you if you keep on changing the size of your array and so on. And because of that, you need to know the difference between the array and linked list before you start your programming, before you declaring if you want to use an array or linked list in your programming code. So let's continue by talking about the implication on how you can implement array in your programming code.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Shaira binti Ahmad Fikri with metric number of 2013890. So I will continue with the basic operations of array-based list. So what are the basic operations that we have here? So by using lists, the operations are, for example, like the make empty, print list, insertion, deletion, and also find. So these are basically the available operations that we have in the list. But today, I'm going to explain only 4 basic operations, which are creation, insertion, deletion, and also display. So the first one is the operation of creating a list using the array. So creating operation, it is the list with n elements which are being created using the create application. So here n is the boundary limit of an array. So we need to bear in mind that array always starts with 0 and ends with an array. So for example, here I have the size of 10. So if I wanted to insert more than 10 data which exceeds the array limit, it will not accept to add the data into the list, meaning that there are limitations to the array. So we only can put the data based on the limitation to the array. So now let's move on to the next one, which is the insertion operation. So insertion operation is basically used to insert an element at a particular position in the existing list. So by inserting an element in the last position of an array, it always seems easy, but to insert an element at any position is quite difficult because it is pushing the entire array down one position to make room for a new element. And so for example, let's say if I wanted to insert one data in the position, I have to move all of the data from that position one step to the right, and it will replace the current data. So for example, right here we have an array-based list with 5 elements. So we are going to insert an element with value of 23 to the position of 0. So we can see clearly in the notation given here. So next, all of the existing elements will be shifted one position to the right to make room for the next data to be inserted into the list. And then right here we can see that the value of 23 has been inserted into the array position of 0. And then last but not least, the list size will be increased by 1 from list size of 5 to 6, and it will make the cost to insert into an array-based list in the worst case, which is the big O number of operations where there are n items in the list. So the next one is deletion. For the deletion part, deletion is the process of removing an element from the array at any position. So just the same like the insertion part, to delete an element from the end is quite easy, but let's say if we wanted to delete an element from any particular position, it requires all subsequent elements from that position to be shifted one position towards the left. So for example, right here for the number 1, here we have a list which contains of 5 elements in total. So what are we going to do now is to remove the value of 12 in a position of 1 of the array, which is the current position right now. And then after that, we will copy the element that has to be deleted from the list. The next one is all elements after the current element will be shifted one position to the left. And after that, the list size will be decreased by 1, which is from 5 to 4. And last but not least, it will return the deleted element. So we might have to shift all of the remaining elements, deletion from any array base list, which is a big O number of operation in the worst case if there are n elements in the list. So what I can say is that on average, relocating half of the elements is needed for each insertion or removal. And then last but not least, we have the display operation. So display operation is giving the meaning of process of visiting all of the elements in the array. So display operation is also used to display all of the elements which has been stored in the list. So if we look at the example, by using display function, there is a for loop implemented from the starting node, which is position 0, and then followed with the ending position n, which also has been implemented there as well. So we have the printf %d \t, which is calling for the integer from the list. So as a result, it will get the output for the entire list. So I think that is all from me. Thank you. I will pass the presentation to the next presenters.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Adibah binti Rokasa with metric number 2016458. In this part, I will present about array list implementation. Array list implementation can consist of three things, which is randomly accessing any element. Next is searching the list for a particular value, and lastly, inserting or deleting an array element at the end. This is because the position of each element is given by an index from 0 to n-1, where n is the number of elements. The element with the index can be accessed in constant time. The time to access does not depend on the size of the list. Therefore, it can be said that the time taken to add an element at the end of the list does not depend on the size of the list, but time taken to add an element at any point in the list depends on the size of the list, because the subsequent element must be shifted to the next index value. So the addition near the start of the list take longer time when the addition near the middle than the addition in near the middle or the end. Similarly, when an element is removed, subsequent element must be shifted to the previous index value. So removal near the start of the list take longer time than removals near the middle or the end of the list. Next, we're going to tell about the advantage and disadvantage of array. First of all, the advantage of array is fast access to a specific index, because array support random access with causing efficient indexing. Next is less memory is needed per element, because using array there is no memory waste if the array is full or almost full. Otherwise, it may result in much memory waste. On the other hand, for the disadvantages of array can be expensive to insert item, because we know as insertion and deletion time is low, so elements are usually shifted, and this going to cost more and become expensive to be applied. Next is resizing is an expensive operation, because array is apply fixed size, so resizing is expensive. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Muhammad Akmal Najwan bin Abdullah, method number 1927123, and I will talk about function of array. Okay, first one, an array is a data structure which can store a fixed size collection of elements of the same type. Next one, an array is used to store a collection of data, but it's often more useful to think of an array as a collection of variables of the same type. Okay, last one, array consists of contiguous memory locations. The lowest address correspond to the first element, and the highest address to the last element. Okay, so we move to example of question. So we are given an array-based list, and in the array there's geography, history, philosophy, psychology, and anthropology. And the question is, assuming the list is array-based of size 7, redraw the list after performing the following operation if applicable. Okay, the first operation is insert into 3, insert politic into 3. The second one, insert commerce into 1. Next one is insert science into 2. And next one is delete 2. And the last one, insert management into 4. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, the next operation is insert into 3 politics. Okay, we can see now at address 3 is psychology, so we need to move psychology and anthropology one step ahead to make a space for politics. Okay, so after that will be geography, history, philosophy, politics at address 3, and psychology now at address 4, while anthropology at address 5. Okay. Okay, so the next operation is insert into address 1 comments. So right now the original array at address 1 is history. Okay, so we will put comments in the at history place and move the uh, next element in the array to the next spot in the array. So history, so the product will be geography, commerce, history, philosophy, politics, psychology, and anthropology. Okay, the next operation is insert into address 2 science. So the before this, when we insert the comments, the list is now full, so there's no empty space left, and there will be an error because the list is full. Okay, the next operation is delete 2. Okay, we can see from the original array, address 2 is history, so we will delete history, and then the place will be empty. The next element after history will occupy the space and move one space uh, one space behind them, and leave one empty space at the end. The next operation is insert to address 4, insert management. Okay, so we can see at original array, uh, address 4 there's psychology, so we'll move psychology and the next element anthropology to the next space to put management. Okay, so management will go to the address 4, and psychology will go to 5, and anthropology will go to address uh, 6. Okay, so there will be uh, geography, commerce, philosophy, politics, management, psychology, and anthropology. That's all for the question. Thank you.